Check, check, 1, 2. Good morning.
Yep. Morning.
So just drawing these up a little bit. When I got my new computer, or got my computer switched out, I didn't have the existing drawings on here, so. Okay. All right. So today I just kind of wanted to just review drawings a little bit. Maybe we're going to go over how to create some templates, create some drawing templates. And I think tomorrow, I was going to see if maybe we could get into the actually doing assemblies. But I think we'll just kind of wait until tomorrow for that, because I thought I had all these drawn, but apparently I didn't get them transferred over. Well, I didn't get them transferred over from my old computer onto this computer, so don't have them. So anyway, I don't have like parts 1 and 2 basically, but shouldn't really take me that long to draw them. But anyway, so does anybody have any questions before we get started?
No.
No? Okay. So what I was going to do is do part number 1. If we look at part number 1 on the original blueprint, excuse me. Right, so we have 4 views, front, top, right side, and an ISO. And, from there we can kind of switch some stuff around. So basically, whenever you're creating your drawings, especially when you already have an existing drawing like what we're doing, the easiest way to do this is just to try to copy all of the dimensions on here as well as you can.
So I did that, but I cleaned it up because that is just a nightmare to try to read right there.
Yeah, exactly.
Too many hidden lines shown.
Yeah. Yeah, the amount of hidden lines is insane. And kind of like what we did the other day, where I like to have hidden lines on like 1 or 2 views.
Right.
But like this, I agree. It's just way too much. But what happens lots of times is when people turn these in, lots of times they will miss certain dimensions on here. So like when I grade these, well, if right now, to be completely honest, I'm doing a pass fail for you guys if you haven't noticed. But when we do get back to more of a normal type classroom, if we do classroom environment, when these get turned in, what I typically do is have each dimension worth multiple points. So if you get the dimension wrong, you get knocked off, or if it's missing, you miss points. And so I've actually had quite a few students kind of struggle with the blueprint making aspect of this because of that, because they kind of they get in here and they make their blueprint and then they forget 3 dimensions, and then all of a sudden that's 10 points off. They're not doing as well as they.
By far, that part and the second part are the hardest on the blueprints, from what I noticed. I was struggling pretty hard with that.
Yeah. Yeah, and so that's kind of why I tell people is to kind of just try to match exactly what they have here, because these blueprints have been proofed at least a little bit, meaning people have looked at them and said, hey, we're missing, I can't make this because I'm missing this dimension, or whatever. So usually works pretty well if you do that. That said, like you just said, if you want to move things around, rearrange, I have zero problem with that. Just as long as all the dimensions are on there and you're able to make your part and it's clear. Those are the biggest things. So we're just going to basically duplicate part 1 into a drawing format. All right, so I'm just going to say, well, before I get into that, actually, before I go there, we'll actually create a couple templates. So we're not going to make a drawing from our part. We're just going to create a new blank drawing. And so you can do portrait, landscape. Landscape is typically what the more common orientation. All right, so right now we have our model view. Because I did not select a part, right now we have this option over here in our model view, right? So what this is saying is, hey, what part do we want to import in here? And I don't actually want to import any models in here. What I want to do is, oh, maybe not, maybe it won't let me. All right, so let's see. Oh boy, I love when they cut off the words in these menus and you can't see what in the hell you're trying to pick. All right, so apparently I was wrong. I thought we could just drag blank views on there, but apparently we can't. So I'm going to go with part number 1, the one we were just looking at. So when we look at our blueprint, this is a pretty standard blueprint, right? We have front, top, right side, and ISO. So we have 4 views on there, 3 of which are giving us dimensions. So I'm just going to try to create exactly that. So because of how I drew this, my views are not going to match, right? So if in my standard views in my blueprint, right, this is my front view, front, top, right side. Well, when I look at my view palette over here in SolidWorks, my right view is actually, because of how I drew it, the orientation I drew it, is now my front view. Okay, so I don't want to use this, my front view, because this is my front view and I'm going to start off with that. That's not how we want to do it. We really want to start off with the orientation that's going to best display our geometry. So from here, all we really need to do is create our views. Right, and so in this case, I'm going to get rid of this view, this right side view. I'm going to get rid of it because it's not really telling me anything. The only way that's going to tell me anything is if I put my show blind or hidden lines, show my hidden lines. Excuse me. So the only way it's going to show me anything is if I turn on hidden lines, and I like, like we said before earlier, I like to avoid that if at all possible. So instead of doing my right side view, I'm just going to change this into my left view. All right, so it's still the exact same information display, just mirrored basically. And then from here, we're basically just going to kind of orientate these views around into a good spot. And then if we wanted to change our, if we want to change some options here, like our document properties, if I want my default units to be in 3 decimal places, now is the time to change that. If I want to change my angles to no decimal places, or yeah.
What's the difference between doing it that way and going up to dimensions and changing in there, or is there a difference?
Oh, like changing it up here?
Yeah.
So this is going to change depending on what kind of dimension you're talking about. So, well, I guess technically it shouldn't make a difference, I guess.
Just a different page layout, kind of.
Yeah, now that I think about it.
Because that's the way that I was going about it all last night, was just going to dimensions, changing the primary precision there and the dual precision as well.
Yeah. No, you could do that. Yeah, now that I think about it, you should be able to do that. It shouldn't be a problem. The only thing is, I think this is only going to change the dimensions that are drawn on there. So like if you had a whole table or something like that, it's going to give you 2 decimal place dimensions for all, like the locations and the whole sizes and all that stuff. That might be so this might be more inclusive of more things, but if all you want to change is your dimensions to 3 decimal places, then you could definitely do it there. And also in that spot, you can change like how these are displayed, all that stuff. And so at this point, we're pretty much done. I like to, like I was saying the other day, I always like to change my ISO to just a little bit smaller. It's because, your ISO, you're not really using it to get dimensions off of. You're really just using it to kind of get a better view of what this is.
Right.
So usually you don't need a whole bunch of room on it.
When laying out the views, could you lay out the bottom view instead of top view, possibly?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Would it be possible for us to switch to bottom view for top view when doing these?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so when you decide what views you're going to do, really you're basing that off of what best displays the information about the part. Like this, I guess that'd be top view here. Like this top view right now, it gives us some information on width, and we can kind of extrapolate some of the slot width and all that stuff, but it's really not showing us anything about that hole or our cross holes or anything like that. So,
or the bottom is where there's that 4 bolt hole circle pattern.
Yeah, exactly. So, whichever view you choose is basically whatever you feel displays that information the best. So, that's kind of one of those things with there's no, not a real hard and fast rule on what views to use and what goes where. It's kind of I take that back. I'm sure that there are. I'm sure that there are some hard and fast like ISO type rules for this, but for our purposes, we're not getting that in the depth. I don't expect any of you to go out and be draftsmen. So, basically you're, as a machinist, I guess the bar is pretty forgiving. So the other thing I like to do is, like I did before the other day, is kind of change my title block so that my title is actually referencing what this part actually is instead of being down here in the drawing number and going off the page and all that. So one of the things with this is lots of times you'll have to change the font size in order to fit this, right? Obviously that fits in there okay right now, but this is just a text box. It's just like a text box in any of your Word programs or, all sorts of different programs making a text box. So with this, if you need to adjust this, all you really need to do is either click on your text box and go to your feature manager, and you can change the font there. Maybe I always forget this takes, for some reason this takes forever to load. Right, you can change your font just like any other program, or you can double click in there, right click, and font. You can change the font there as well. So now we don't have to, but actually, now that I think about it, if we're creating a template, that might not be a bad thing to change, right? Because I don't want to have to come in here every time and change this around. That is a 24-point font, so it's pretty damn big. So I can change it to like 16-point, and that makes it much smaller. And so now if I have a file that, I'm going to adjust this text box a little bit. So now if I have a file name that's significantly larger, it'll still fit in there. I won't have to go back in and edit after the fact. And then this is also where we want to do our adjust our tolerances. Now, again, for you guys doing class, you know, the tolerances are obviously not determined by what you put in here. So you do have to, I mean, it's not the most useful thing for you to do, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Oops. Uh-oh. There we go. If you hold down Alt and do 0176, that's the degree symbol.
Took me a little while to figure that one out.
Yeah, and actually I just realized that that's not a degree.
You can also scroll down in your side menu on the note over there.
Oh,
left,
yeah.
I scroll down and pick, or
Yeah.
there was an option, I think, at one point. For me,
Yeah,
it is.
you can do a symbol, insert symbol, which is going to be there.
Okay.
So if you do add symbol, you can say, I'm going to add a plus or minus. I'm going to add a, you know, but regardless of feature size, I mean, those are some. Those aren't the notes that I'm used to. So anyway, so we can go there, angular, so it's going to be 0.5 and alt 0176. Adjust that. So my two place decimal is going to be 0.01, 0.003, and then we'll just say for place decimal, and then let's say that's 1 thou or a half of that. So let's try to center that a little better. All right, now we have our tolerances. We have our, basically have our whole template set. So now I'm just going to do save as. Oops, I'm going to get out of there. And I'll do file, save as, template, drawing template. And again, it's going to change to my template folder. I'm just going to give this a, call it draw. And then I'll do T for top, or how about front, F, T, and right side, no, left side view, ISO. So I'm just basically putting in information about here, right? So I have my drawing, I have the views that are in that drawing, and then I'm going to put the tolerance for my tolerance, but the precision for the numbers, or the resolution. So what just popped up, right? Template store only predefined and empty views, so models, dimensions, annotations will be removed from the views. So what that's saying is it's not going to, when I open this up, it is not going to bring in my offset boring head part number 1 into this view. It's just going to leave it blank, right? So there we go. Now I can still move these around. Well, maybe not. I thought I could. So I can still move those around, still adjust layout and that sort of thing. But what you'll see, hopefully, where's that? So let's say part number 5. If part number 5 opens. There we go. So let's say I want to make a print based off of this guy, and I don't want to go through the whole trouble. So I can actually just do my make drawing from part assembly, and now I just select that template. And what that's going to do is it's automatically going to import those views into here, and it might put them in kind of a funky position too. All right, so when I do this, whenever you make a drawing, and you've probably noticed this already, it locks alignment. So right now I cannot move this left or right. It is locked vertically with this part. And that's just basically a drafting standard. And usually you want to keep that, right? But it really makes zero sense at all for you to have an alignment lock on an ISO view, right? Because we're not lining up any of these lines. Having these lined up can really be helpful when you have a print, because you can lay a ruler on there, right? I mean, we've hopefully probably all done that in blueprint reading class, where we've laid a ruler or a straight edge down on our print to make sure that these features, to make sure that the features line up, right? Or things are what they think they look like. But it really doesn't make any sense with an ISO. So what we have to do there is we have to break this alignment. Because right now this is aligned vertically, right? I can't move it horizontally, but it will move vertically. So it's locked in here, well, horizontally. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to right click on this feature. Really, I can right click anywhere in this view, and the view is defined by this little orange triangle, rectangle, square, whatever around it. And then, so if you right click anywhere inside that and go down to alignment, we can align these, right? So if I wanted to align these parts together, I can, but what I want to do here is I want to break alignment, right? So I'm going to break alignment, and now I can drag this wherever I want it to go.
Awesome.
So that makes life a lot easier.
Yeah, that just helped me out a whole bunch.
Good, good. The other thing that you can do, right, and so this imported our views, but maybe this isn't necessarily the orientation that we want, right? I mean, I would probably rather have this view here or here than somewhere else. So what we can do is we can actually rotate these parts. So same thing, if I right click and I come over here, I can zoom, pan, rotate. I'm just going to rotate view. And so what this will do is I can drag this and rotate it around, and oops, no, it didn't do it. All right, so what I can do here on my original view is I can rotate this guy around, and that's going to change my other views.
Oh, whoa. Right,
so this is a really good way of kind of being able to adjust our views a little bit and get a little bit more information about what we're trying to do. Especially on a part like this, right? We don't really need two views. Two views would be more than enough information here. So in this case, for this part, even though I imported into a 3-view or technically 4-view part, I'm just going to delete one of them. And so now we have more what's needed, right? We don't really need the entire model. So in this case, I would just say, I would unclick use parent style on both my ISO and that view, and then I would just come to here and click on hidden lines, and now I can see the counter bore, I can see the through holes and all that stuff, but my other view isn't cluttered by it. All right, I still have my tolerances, my title blocks looking a lot better, and from here I can adjust sizes. Since this is a smaller part, it doesn't really make it quite as much sense to use the same size, so I might want to make it bigger or whatever. And then from there, right, same thing as the other one, we can hit model items, import features into all views, entire model. and then click OK, and it's gonna throw our dimensions in there. And just like before, we can go through, adjust, make things more clear, and so on. So I'll just save that, click OK. And the other thing, one more thing with blueprints that I'm thinking about that I haven't really talked about, to save as something else, we can just save natively as a PDF. We used to have to export as a PDF or do a print PDF sort of thing, but SolidWorks added this in quite a few years ago.
Is that something we ought to be doing when we're saving it to our U drive or whatever?
No, I have SolidWorks, so I'm not worried about it. But like if you're trying to use these on a personal, like for personal stuff, or you're just worried about having access to this computer to print something off, that's why I always put stuff in PDF format for you guys, just so you don't have to open up SolidWorks every time to view a print. Also, these SolidWorks files can get pretty large, so PDFs can save a lot of space in that way. All right, so let's save that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to alter my well, SolidWorks crashes. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to open the template. So again, when I go to open, I can just select my part or the type of file that I'm going to look for. So for almost anything, it's just going to look in the last place that I saved, or last place that I opened something up. One of the cool parts, when I open up template, it automatically takes me to my template folder. So I'm just going to open up my 4-view drawing, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to save as, and then I'm just going to change this. So I'm going to change it from front, top, and left to just the front left. The other thing you could throw in here is landscape or something like that. All right, so I just changed the file name. That's really all I changed. And so I changed that to front left. So I'm going to get rid of my top view. All right, and that's it. I guess I'll break that alignment. It shouldn't be aligned with anything, but it almost seemed like it was a little bit. And then, right, so all I changed was that. So I'm just going to click save, and that's it. So that's how you do. That is how you do drawing templates. So now if I did that same part again, but instead chose a different template, right? Choose that template instead. It's going to be the exact same part. It's just now, instead of having 3 measuring views, direct views, whatever you want to call them, we have 2. So pretty straightforward. Don't save. All right, so that's, I apologize. I wanted to get in assemblies today, but I just don't have all those parts drawn. I just need I think 1 or 2 more to do. So I'm actually going to call that a day for today and get those drawn so we can get on assemblies for tomorrow, how to put together assemblies. So unless anybody has any questions, that's
I have a question for you.
Yeah, absolutely. What's up?
When we make that brass piece you have there now, that would be when we have to tap it internally.
Do you have to? No, this doesn't have threaded holes on it. These are just through holes.
Then the other one, it goes along it. There was we had to put a 40 tap on 6.
Oh, okay. That would be, I believe that is part number, 6. I don't have that one drawn either. Let me pull up the print. But yeah, so we have a 3/8 40 tap.
Okay.
When you tool path that, you might have to create a new tap
Yeah, I just had to edit the 3/8 16 or whatever the
Okay.
standard is, and just tell it that I had 40 inches per
Yeah.
or 40 threads per inch.
Yeah. So that's really the only thing that you really have to just double check that just to make sure that you have the right tap and the right feed on there.
All right.
But yeah, other than that, it's just like using any other tool or any other tap.
All right. Thank you.
No problem.
So, you answered my one question. I had like a little list that I wrote out
Okay.
regarding saving blueprint templates.
Yeah.
Is there an easier way to like pull a drawing view off? So say you've got your front and you pull down, you've got your side. Can you pull from the side over to get like the back?
Yeah. So here, let me show you. Well, we'll create a print for that guy.
I think that's actually the part that
Oh,
I
cool. Oops, that's new. All right, so new part. No, that's not what I was looking for. Not a good print, but what we can do, right? So it doesn't really matter. I'll just select that. Use custom. Oh, I forgot about that. All right, so this is always one of my favorites is when you don't lock the sizes to each other, but the the alignment's locked, and it's like that doesn't make any sense at all. So right now this is our parent view.
Right.
So basically all we do is right click on another view and do a projected view, and now we can do a projected view off of that.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah, so that's all you need to do. Is actually really straightforward. So you're not confined to only doing that projected view off of your main view. Yeah.
Okay, cool. That's all I needed then.
All right, great.
Thank you.
Good question. All right, guys. Well, that was a good 30 minutes, I guess. So yeah, tomorrow we'll be going over how to do an assembly. I guess next week's assignment will be getting into some assemblies, but no assemblies will be due this week. So
okay.
Are there
any steps we could take to kind of start figuring that out before class tomorrow?
Of what assemblies?
Yeah, just kind of play around.
Sure. Yeah, I mean the big thing with assemblies is you think of it, like with your drawings, everything has a relation.
Right.
Everything is the parametric part of it, right? So you have to create those relations from sketch to sketch, or even items in a sketch. You're basically doing the same thing with assemblies. It's just instead of called relations, they're called mates. So like a coincident mate would be like if I took, well, here I'll just do a quick one. So let's see, I got this part here, right? And I want to create an assembly from that part. So first spot it's going to dump me in is going to have a little, in my dialog box over here, it's going to have begin assembly, and it's going to choose or have a choice of whatever parts I currently have open. So right now, offset boring head part number 1, if I click anywhere out here, it's going to place that part. If I click there, now it's going to place part number 2. So I'm just going to start off with 1, and then, right, so 1 part doesn't really help me in assembly. It's just basically a part hanging out there. So I need to mate that to something. So if I take part number 2, right, I have 2 parts out there.
Right.
One of them is fixed and one of them is floating. So if I take this, I can drag it around. I can, make those intersect with each other. It doesn't really matter. There's no collision detection turned on right now. So it's not going to stop me or say, hey, you cannot do this. It defies the laws of physics. Lets me do everything. Now this guy, I cannot move him because it is fixed. And that's really what you want to do. If you don't do it like this, inevitably your models or your assemblies will come out misaligned. Like they won't be normal to any of the normal, any of our XYZ plane. They're just kind of twisted and off in weird space, which when you bring that assembly into another assembly, things can get even weirder. So we want to try to keep one part fixed. It doesn't matter really what it is. But then if we think about how these parts interact together, right? So we know this has a dovetail, an external dovetail that goes into that internal dovetail.
Right.
So if I think about it, right, if I put this in here, well, what would define that relationship? Well, this dovetail is going to be centered in that dovetail. And this dovetail is going to be able to slide back and forth. So basically that's all you do is you create those relations. And one way to do it is there are more complex ways, like we could do this with a width mate, but that's kind of more complex. The easier way to do it is just with the most common mate, and that is a coincident mate. So basically what you do is you select your geometry that you want to align, and we can either click on our little paperclip icon here, our mate icon, or you can come up here. Doesn't really matter, it's still the same button. And what we will do is we're going to say this side is going to be coincident with this side, right? Which it just did. Now, it did it,
Fully
right?
functional.
But yeah, it doesn't really help us out a whole lot. So what we need to do is we need to add more mates. Well, if I say then this is going to be this bottom part, right? When that goes through that dovetail, this is always going to be parallel with the bottom of that. So
Right.
I can create a parallel mate with that. But there's the problem, right? It's upside down. It's the wrong way. So what makes this a lot easier is if my part is more aligned just to start off with.
Right.
But there's always this button down here, mate alignment, right? So what this is going to do is right now, this is parallel. It's true, right? We are parallel, but we are parallel in a way that we don't really want to be. So what I can do is I can click on that. I can create I'm going to keep it parallel. I'm going to create a parallel, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch it in that direction, right? And so when I did that, it also had to change my coincident. I had to just flip the alignment on that coincident orientation that we had earlier. But now I'm at least getting closer, right? So, so I'm actually going to change this parallel to coincident because that'll make my life a little easier.
Neat.
Right, and so now it can still go back and forth, but the problem is it can still slide, 20 feet out of my
Disassembly.
yeah, it can disassemble, violent disassembly. So there are other mates that we can use to kind of limit that motion. There's what's called limit mate, which is in your advanced mates, but we don't really need to get into that right now. But basically that's all you're doing is you're just going around creating these relationships between your parts.
Okay.
And then,
So
yeah,
I guess, is it going to tell you if like something doesn't line up right, like if you've got a dimension wrong, or I guess we can talk about that tomorrow. That'd be probably a little more complicated.
yeah, I mean, well, that's kind of what our evaluate tools are.
Okay.
So like if we wanted to know like interference, right? So our selected components are basically just our entire model because I didn't have anything selected. But if I had, say I had 15 parts in here, I just wanted to see, do these two parts interfere with each other? I could select both of these parts and then calculate, right? So right now we have interference of, it says 10,000. I don't believe that. No, but we do. All right, you can kind of see it there.
Right.
So that's detecting that interference on there. So obviously I don't have something drawn correctly.
Well, it looks like you may just have to mate that the bottom of the dovetail on the top part in that view with the top of part one.
Oh yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah. So that was my first coincident mate. So I can actually go back in and edit this feature. So now instead of being those two, well, I guess those two surfaces have to be, I guess it'd be my second one. So right now it's these two surfaces. So I'll just clear that out, which gets rid of that dimension, and I'll select that side and that side, shifts it up. There we go. And now, oops, if I do my interference detection, no interferences.
Cool.
Yay. But clearance, if you're worried about clearance between two parts, right? You can also do clearance verification. It's basically going to do the same thing. It'll tell you how much clearance we have in between these two parts and all that stuff. Like this guy, we got 60 thou clearance in the bottom of that, slot. So, but yeah, that's basically how you do the clearance and all that stuff. You can check whole assembly alignment. That's kind of handy. But yeah, getting in the evaluate, you really start getting into some pretty heavy stuff here, like the analysis, simulation, flow express, all that stuff can really get like motion studies and all sorts of cool stuff. But yeah. So any more questions?
For now, I think I'm good.
All right, excellent. So I will see you guys, not see you, but I guess I will talk to you guys tomorrow.
Talk to you tomorrow.
All right, have a good night.
You too.